All right, get ready, 'cause today we're going to jump right into a Reddit thread that's sparking all kinds of conversation, and it's about something you might not expect.
Oh, yeah.
The question that started it all is, do you masturbate by yourself if you're living with your significant other?
Interesting. What stood out to me right away was how open and honest the responses were. Over 150 comments came in, and you can tell this is something that people from all walks of life think about.
Yeah, it's like
Like, yeah.
everyone suddenly felt okay with sharing their secrets. But really, what I find fascinating is what these responses tell us about how we see intimacy, self-care, and how relationships work today.
Absolutely. It's like a peek behind the curtain of what people consider normal in a relationship these days.
So let's break this down. One of the first things that caught my eye was how many people, a lot of women in particular, talked about solo masturbation as like a way to regulate themselves. Even if they're sexually active in their relationships, they say it helps them manage stress and just feel more balanced overall.
Right, and that's really important. There's more and more research coming out about how masturbation is good for both your mental and physical health. It's not just about pleasure, it's about taking care of yourself.
Exactly. And the Reddit thread is full of people giving examples. They talked about using solo masturbation to unwind after a long day, to help them fall asleep, or even just for a quick mood boost.
What's interesting is that this connects to the idea of having your own individual needs within a relationship. We usually think of intimacy as something you share, but this shows how important it is to honor those individual needs too.
Totally. Speaking of individual needs, another big thing that popped up was the issue of couples having different libidos. There were a lot of comments from people explaining that solo masturbation helps bridge that gap without putting pressure on their partner.
Yeah, and that brings up the question of communication and negotiation. How do couples deal with those differences in desire in a healthy way? Do they talk about it openly, set boundaries? It's fascinating to think about the different ways couples approach this.
One woman shared this really relatable story about how she sometimes wants multiple orgasms, but feels weird asking her partner for more after he's already given her so many.
That's so common. It speaks to the pressure we feel to perform or meet expectations in the bedroom. Solo masturbation, in that context, can be a way to explore your own pleasure without all that outside pressure.
It's about taking back your sexuality and feeling empowered to prioritize your own needs. And, it's not always just about the number of orgasms. Some people talked about solo masturbation as a way to explore fantasies or kinks that they might not want to share with a partner.
That goes back to the idea of sexual autonomy within a relationship. You can have a fulfilling solo sexual life that actually adds to your partner dynamic. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right. It challenges this idea that solo masturbation is somehow a bad thing for a couple's sex life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique desires and needs and finding ways to honor those both individually and within the relationship.
Now, it wasn't all positive. We did see some comments from couples who choose to be intimate only with each other. No solo activities at all.
Right, and that's perfectly okay too. The main thing is that it's a choice both partners are making together. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to intimacy, as long as everyone is on the same page.
I think that's so important. Relationships are all about figuring out what works for you as a couple, and that can look different for everyone. This Reddit thread really made me think about how solo masturbation, even with all its complexities, can actually give us valuable insights into how modern relationships are evolving.
I agree. It speaks to a growing understanding that having individual needs and desires doesn't conflict with being in a fulfilling partnership. They can actually make it better.
So true. Moving on, another point that came up a few times was how personal and intimate solo masturbation can be.
Oh, yeah, there was one comment that really stuck with me. Someone described it as a way to connect with themselves, mind, body, and soul, almost like meditation.
And someone else even said they couldn't have said it better themselves. Clearly, that idea really resonated with people.
It points to the importance of being self-aware and accepting yourself, especially when it comes to your sexuality. It's about honoring your own desires and needs without any shame or judgment.
So it's not just about physical release. It's about exploring your own sensuality, your own pleasure. And that exploration can be a powerful journey of self-discovery.
Definitely. And for some people, that journey might involve fantasies or desires they choose not to act out with a partner.
One person even mentioned fantasizing about things they wouldn't actually want to do in real life, which
Now,
is totally normal, right?
of course, fantasy is a space where we can explore different parts of ourselves without having to act on them. It's about having that safe place to be curious, to experiment, and to figure out what really speaks to you.
And on the other side of that, we saw comments from people who said they much prefer being intimate only with their partner. They felt it made their connection stronger and was more fulfilling.
And that's a beautiful thing. It speaks to the power of shared intimacy. For some couples, focusing only on each other is incredibly meaningful and makes their bond stronger.
Again, it's important to remember there's no single right answer. What matters is that both partners are in agreement.
Exactly. Open communication, mutual respect, and finding what works for both individuals, those are the key ingredients for a healthy and happy relationship. Yeah, exactly.
So this whole conversation has got me thinking about how solo masturbation actually works in relationships. Like, how do couples handle those times when they might not be feeling the same level of desire?
That's a good question. Life can get busy, people get stressed, and sometimes, let's be real, one person just wants it more than the other. It's gonna happen.
For sure. And instead of letting that turn into frustration or resentment, some people see solo masturbation as a good compromise.
It's a way to take care of your needs without putting pressure on the other person. You can maintain your own satisfaction and release while still respecting each other's boundaries.
And sometimes it's just about practicality. One woman even mentioned that she uses solo masturbation to help her fall asleep when her husband goes to bed earlier than her.
Makes sense. It's all about using this tool for your own self-care and well-being, realizing that it can serve different purposes at different times.
It's about having that flexibility to prioritize your own needs without making a big fuss about it.
And in a long-term relationship, that kind of flexibility can be so important for keeping things balanced and healthy.
Absolutely. Okay, this might sound a little strange, but some people actually said that solo masturbation can make a couple's sex life better. Did you see any comments like that?
Yeah, I did. And it's an interesting point of view. One guy even said that his wife sometimes masturbates before they have sex, so she doesn't take as long to orgasm. He actually said it makes their time together more enjoyable for both of them.
So it's kind of like understanding what each other needs and finding creative ways to make intimacy better.
Exactly. It challenges this whole idea that solo masturbation is bad for a couple's sex life. It can actually increase pleasure and make the experience more fulfilling for both people.
Now, we've talked about communication a lot already, but it seemed like many people in the Reddit thread really stressed how important it is to be open and honest with your partner about solo masturbation.
For sure, open communication is essential in any relationship, but especially when you're dealing with something as sensitive as sexuality. It's about making a space where both people can express their needs and desires without feeling judged or ashamed.
Right, and remember that one woman who shared that story about how her boyfriend wishes her happy jackin' every night before bed?
Oh, yeah, that's so cute. It really shows a level of comfort and acceptance that's heartwarming.
Totally. It just normalizes solo masturbation as part of their individual lives, even though they're in a loving relationship.
It reminds us that healthy relationships allow for individuality and self-expression. It's not about becoming one person, it's about two whole people coming together.
And that individuality includes our sexual needs and desires, right?
Absolutely. Recognizing and respecting those individual needs is essential for a partnership to be fulfilling and last. It's not about sacrificing your needs for the other person, it's about finding a balance that works for both of you.
Reading through all these comments, I was struck by how many different reasons people gave for engaging in solo masturbation. It's not always just about physical release. It can be about relieving stress, exploring yourself, or just taking a moment for yourself.
It just goes to show how multifaceted sexuality is. We're complex people with a whole range of needs and desires, and those can shift and change over time.
So let's say someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, this is all interesting, but how does it relate to me? What advice would you give to someone who might be struggling with this in their own relationship?
Well, I think the first thing is to just accept that it's okay to have these feelings. There's nothing wrong with wanting to engage in solo masturbation, even if you're in a relationship. And then talk to your partner about it. It doesn't have to be this big, serious discussion. You could start by saying something like, hey, I was reading this article about solo masturbation, and it got me thinking.
That's a great way to approach it. Starting with curiosity and openness can make the conversation less scary.
Exactly. And don't forget, communication goes both ways. Be ready to listen to what your partner has to say, too. They might have their own thoughts and feelings about solo masturbation that they haven't shared yet.
And even if you don't agree on everything, the important thing is to make a space where you can talk respectfully and feel safe.
Absolutely. You might be surprised by how much closer you feel to your partner simply by being open and honest about this. And even if you decide as a couple that solo masturbation isn't something you want in your relationship, just having that conversation can strengthen your bond and help you understand each other better.
That's a great point. It's not about finding the one right answer. It's about finding what works for the two of you.
And remember, relationships are a journey, not a destination. There will be times when you have to adjust and adapt to new challenges and ideas. But if you face those challenges with open communication and respect for each other, you can get through them together.
Well said. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this complex and fascinating topic.
It's true. This Reddit thread has given us some really valuable insights into all the different ways people think about solo masturbation in relationships. And it's a good reminder that there's no one right way to do things.
Before we move on, I want to go back to something we discussed earlier, the idea of solo masturbation as self-care. I think this is so important, especially these days when we're constantly busy and bombarded with demands and expectations.
It's so easy to forget about our own needs, both physically and emotionally. And I think solo masturbation can be a great way to reconnect with ourselves, to make our own pleasure and well-being a priority.
It's about giving ourselves permission to take a break, to tune out all the noise, and to just enjoy what our bodies feel like.
And it doesn't have to be this big, complicated ritual. It could be as simple as taking 5 minutes in the shower to focus on how your own touch feels. It's about fitting those small moments of self-care into your everyday life.
I like that. It's about taking back those moments and making them important. And I think that's something we all need no matter what our relationship status is.
Definitely. Single, in a relationship, whatever, taking care of yourself is essential. And solo masturbation can be a fantastic way to do that, for sure. And sometimes you just need a simple hamburger instead of some fancy steak dinner.
It's like saying, hey, variety is the spice of life, even when it comes to sex.
Right, right. So to wrap up this fascinating look into the world of solo masturbation in relationships, the biggest takeaway seems to be that there's no one right answer for everyone.
You got it.
It's all about open communication, respecting each other, and figuring out what works for you as individuals and as a couple. Whether it's for self-care, managing those differences in libido, exploring your own desires, or just taking some me time, solo masturbation can definitely be a natural part of a healthy and fulfilling relationship.
I couldn't agree more.
And remember, it doesn't have to be something you're afraid to talk about. Being open with your partner about what you need and desire can actually make your connection stronger and create a more satisfying dynamic for both of you.
So true. So what does all of this mean for you listening in? This deep dive brings up a really interesting question. How does your understanding of solo masturbation affect the way you approach intimacy and communication with your partner? It's something to think about as you navigate the amazing and complex world of relationships. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.